Happy weekend. Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk, the summer edition, is back. The good, the bad, and the ugly of the UFAs and what the CBJ will look like on the ice this fall. We might do some reminiscing of last season even. We're going to talk hockey for beginners and hockey for avid fans, too. I'm Pam Spencer, along with Darren Schulman.
Whee!
And Mark Bingaman.
Happy summer.
And on the phone in a little while will be from his secret location out west, Carl Bennett. Right now he is not available, but we will check in with him soon. Darren usually has a rule for us. He is our rules guru, and we'll check that here in just a little while. But
I want to hold off for Carl.
Right, we're going to hold off.
Him.
We're going to hold off for Carl. But for now, we're going to get started with Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk, the summer edition. I've got lots of notes here, but I'll kind of open it up to you guys. So at this point,
we left on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
What would happen to our unrestricted free agents?
That's right.
And now we know who shot JR.
We do. It's all been resolved. Yeah. So I think we should probably fill people in case they haven't been following it as closely as we have. Is what happened to all those cliffhangers?
Well,
Yes.
pooey. I'm just saying, well, pooey.
Bob left for the beaches of Miami.
Which was somewhat expected.
Yes. And Brad left for the lights of New York City.
A little less expected.
Yeah, I thought they would go together. Duchesne left for the lights of Nashville.
Which apparently
And a
was
free
expected,
guitar.
but I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. And the Hurricanes signed Dzingel this week, so Duchesne and Dzingel aren't together anymore, and they came here from the Ottawa Senators as a package.
And this isn't necessarily a free agent note, but our president went to the Rangers, which may have had some impact on Panarin going there.
That's right.
May have done so. So the Dzingel news came down just the other day. Friday morning is when that happened.
Yes.
So Dzingel with a multi-year contract off to the Carolina Hurricanes.
It was interesting that there was some talk the day or two before that, just a hubbub on social media about whether we would pick him up, but it seemed to be a little quiet on the CBJ front.
They seem not interested.
They did not. I don't believe that they made him an offer. That's correct.
Because when the other three signed, and like, oh yeah, Dzingel's gone too, and I was like, well, no one signed him yet. That must not really be trying, because so that's pretty big losses. So today's rule is about coaches' challenges.
Oh, challenging.
Now, I'm not going into what they can challenge because I want to save some gunpowder for future episodes and stumpage. But this one is a question is how many challenges are you allowed to have in a game?
How many times can the coach challenge the call in a game? Wow, that's a good question. I would say, well, it's one if they lose a challenge, because then they lose their timeout and they can't do it again, correct?
Well, I'm not going to answer until Carl gets to chime in.
But if they're successful in the first challenge, then they should have an opportunity for a second challenge. I don't know. I'm going to let it stay on there.
I thought they changed the rule. I don't know if that goes into effect this fall, if I remember correctly, that they've changed the rule and that they're not going to take away. So I'm going to say they can challenge as often as they wish.
Oh, so he's being tricky.
Carl, what do you think?
So I'm going the opposite direction.
What does Carl think?
Yeah.
I don't know what the rule is going to be coming up this year. I thought it was the previous rule was you had one challenge. I thought.
This is where Darren is tricking
Darren,
you.
do you want to clarify your question, maybe?
Well, that you guys are correct on the old rules,
Dude,
but Pam is
the
so
middle of the
smart.
summer. We're not in shape for this yet.
This is what I live for.
I didn't have a problem with the question.
Yeah, this is a rule change for the coming year. Teams are no longer limited based on the availability of that timeout. You can challenge any time. So I'll put Pam on the spot.
Okay.
It used to be you were limited by that timeout, so you couldn't just blow a bunch of challenges and waste everyone's time. So now that you have an unlimited amount, what's to keep people from just challenging everything?
Well, I think that the coaches will have enough class to pick and choose. I mean, that's an example of, pick your battles. So they're not going to challenge every little podunk thing, but
I don't see the league leaving it up to the coaches and how nice they are and how
professional the coaches are.
Professional, yeah.
Don't want to do that. We've learned that around here.
But I mean, there's some obvious things, like a puck to the face and the guy's bleeding and the guy hasn't blown the whistle yet.
Well, let me clarify what you said the rule changes. You said the rule changes. They have unlimited challenges now in the upcoming season.
Yes.
Unlimited.
So what's to keep him? Carl, what do you think? What's to keep him from just challenging 20 times and losing 20 times?
Nothing.
Who knows? You got me on this one, guys. I haven't. Last Stanley Cup game, the last I thought about hockey. So,
Oh.
Well, I can
You've
tell
caught
you
me.
the answer, gang.
Okay.
There's consequences for unsuccessful challenges. And
Okay.
so basically, you get a minor penalty for delaying the game on your first unsuccessful challenge.
Oh, really?
So if you get it wrong, you get stuck.
Wow.
And then double minor penalties for delaying the game for each additional unsuccessful challenge after that.
Ah.
So there's actually probably going to be less challenges because you don't want to get a penalty for getting it wrong.
Okay.
That's even worse than losing a timeout, is to have a 2-minute penalty. That's a lot
Because
worse.
they don't ever use the timeout. So it's a serious.
Wow. So, yeah, that's made it more difficult. Wow.
And they've changed what can be challenged, but we're not going to get into that till the next episode.
But there are obvious things that even the NHL has admitted in recent weeks that have been missed by the officials. And so they're admitting that there needs to be some changes. And this is an example of one of them, because you're a coach and you're watching what's going on that affects your team, and the other coach is watching what's affecting his team.
Mm-hmm.
And if they catch something that, they believe is a problem, then they're going to raise their hand, and then Toronto can get involved. Are they going to use the video replay for every example in this?
The only thing I will tell you, and to clarify what you said,
Okay.
the coach, Tortorella's not doing this. They've got a guy who sits up and watches
That's
the video, and he calls down and he
Tells
says,
him.
I saw it.
Right.
Because you want to be sure. Now, as Mark
Yes.
said, you want to be even more sure.
Right.
But that guy has seen that person go off sides, and he can tell it's clear.
Right.
That's when you're going to challenge calls. Tortorella's busy doing stuff, but there is a video designated guy for each team that does
I'm
this.
thinking the video guy's going to need an assistant this year.
They might. I mean, there was
I
a
might
game.
apply for that job. No, I'm kidding. But
There are games that have turned on. That one guy was the MVP of the game because he
That's
found someone
correct.
offsides.
yes,
So.
you're right. I
So
agree.
the majority of the challenges normally are the offsides call when a goal has occurred, and they go back and challenge that, and then a challenge for the puck itself. So interesting. So no more. So we're going to see a drastic reduction in the number of times the coach will challenge an offsides call, I would think, because that's the one that's usually a little bit more sort of iffy, because those offsides are difficult sometimes.
Except you can. I mean, there's some where you see the guy and you see the puck. I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah.
The video. I think you'll see less of the calls where it's a crucial time of the game and they score that goal and you're like, oh, I think it was interference. I'm just going to try it because we're going to lose if we don't.
Right.
Because those are weird. Did they touch the goalie? Was he?
Right.
I think they're going to use less of the Hail Mary. I'm just going to use my challenge because then they're even more in a hole.
Now,
But
I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, and we can talk about this in another show if I am. But I read something about the number of times and events that they're going to use instant replay, what we call instant replay or video review for.
they changed that as well.
Yes. Are you familiar with what? I don't have it in front of me to be able to tell you what they're going to do, but I just wondered if you had
I'm
more
mildly
details.
familiar, but
Okay.
I'd love to defer until
Okay.
the next
That's fine.
episode.
We can
'cause
talk about that.
I got 3 saved up for you
Okay.
guys.
All right.
I stumped you so bad today. Give me something to live on.
You
for
didn't
next
stump me.
No,
you
Pam was-
stumped them.
Oh snap! Pam,
No, I do read what I can, but I didn't retain the specifics of the changes this year. I'm excited because I want the game to be clean and played well, and each team that's, if there's an infraction, it needs to be dealt with. So I'm excited. I think it's going to change the game.
So before I stumped you all, we were talking about the losses in free agency, and I would love to see what Carl thinks, because at our last show we did the "Is it worth it?" and we didn't know. We had hope that one of the guys might resign. So, Carl, now that they're all gone, was it worth it? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think by and large, to have the whole city and the state engaged in the Stanley Cup Finals for longer than they had been before is always a plus. And I think that the team played really admirable hockey until the very, very last game or two. I mean, I thought it was really terrific. I thought it was a great thing for the city. And but I'll tell you what, guys, I hope you're on my side on this. I'm not going to miss all the drama about who's coming, who's staying, I'm not going to say the rest. Anyway,
Right. No, I agree.
I think there's a lot to look forward to. We've lost some key pieces, of course. We all know that. It'll be hard to bounce back, but there also is now no one believes in us. Everyone's counting us to come in last. there's the underdog philosophy, and no one's better at being an underdog than John Tortorella. And I read a lot of stuff recently about, there seems to be a lot of Tortorella hate in Columbus. I don't know if it's just they're the mouthiest and they get on the internet the most,
Probably.
or I don't know. It just, man, this franchise was drowning for 16 seasons. And finally, we've made the playoffs the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And he may not be well liked, he may not be a player's coach, but the guy's a proven winner. His methods work. He's a quality coach, and I think if you know anything about the man outside of hockey, I think he's pretty compassionate, pretty forthright dude. And we're all flawed. He has his flaws, but I don't know. I was just really surprised at some of the things I read about the Tortorella hate, and
We like him.
Frustrates me.
Yeah, I
Frustrates
haven't seen
me.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't seen much about Coach Torts, but I'm right there with you. And I mentioned it to Pam previously, too. I mean, I think Tortorella is the most important figure in the Blue Jackets' history up to this point, aside from the 7 years that we had Sergei Bobrovsky. To me, it's Bobrovsky and John Tortorella being the most important assets in this team.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you, Pam, you were kind of like the Bob hater all year.
No, not all year, but there was a period of
Let it
time
go,
where he
Darren.
was slacking.
Are you?
He was a slacker for a while there. I wasn't happy with him.
Are you glad Glad's the wrong word, but
Glad's
are you
not the
okay
right
with
word.
him being gone?
I am perfectly okay with him being gone. Any one of them being gone, and here's why. If you want to be here and support the Columbus Blue Jackets and the fans who buy the tickets, then be here. If you don't want to be here, and it's not so much let the door hit you. I'm not going to tell you let the door hit you in the butt. I'm just saying if you want to be here, be here. If you don't, I wish you well. That's seriously all there is you can say in these examples. These are multi-million-dollar athletes, and we're the fans who buy the tickets that pay those multi-million-dollar contracts, and the sponsors, of course. But no, I won't miss any of them. I'm not dwelling on it. I was hoping that Bread would stay. I really thought that Panarin might stay if they dangled enough money in front of him, but that was not the case. Duchesne, okay, see ya. Bobrovsky, no surprise at all. We knew that Bob was not going to stay. It had been announced multiple times by the coach that he was not staying.
So I think I know your answer to this, Pam. And if I have time, I'd like to indulge me with one final question, which is when players leave sometimes, especially as Carl mentioned under the Panarin back and forth, I'm going to be here, I'm not going to be here, whatever. Sometimes people give them that standing ovation on their first game back, and sometimes they get booed. So I think the answer might be different per players, but which players do you think should be cheered? Which players do you think might be booed? Start with you, Mark.
I think Bob and Brad get cheers, and Duchesne was here for 2 months, so he's like a smattering of whatever, no big deal. But I don't think there are any boos really for anybody for the most part.
Carl, do you have any opinions on that? Because I have a slightly different opinion.
I do.
Well,
too.
as I've said many times on our previous shows, guys, the franchise doesn't go anywhere without 72 in the goal. Forget about it. So he brought us legitimacy, and he's a tremendous goaltender, two-time Vezina. I mean, you got to cheer a guy like that. You got to let him know, hey, it'd be pretty fickle to cheer the guy like crazy, and then 6 months later he shows up in another uniform, and now you can't stand him. I mean, look, these are human beings. These are people. They make decisions about their own lives. I have to respect that. I'm glad he's happy. I don't think he's going to be getting close to the Stanley Cup down there in Florida. That's just my opinion. But if that's what he believes he can do, and I wish him every success. I'm very grateful to Sergei Bobrovsky for bringing the franchise the success that it had. I think he's, certainly it's a team game. We've talked about this before, but I think he's an impact player, had a tremendous impact, and made Columbus legitimate. And if I'm sitting there in that arena, I'll cheer for him. The other guys, I think you cheer them once. Columbus has always been really great about recognizing guys when they return and being courteous to them and thanking them. But boy, as soon as they start coming at you, man, it's time to hit them and boo them. No,
I think my personal opinion is that there are going to be some boos for all three of these players, and I think it's going to be louder boos for Bobrovsky for leaving us. I think people are frustrated with the fact that, he didn't give his all, or it looks like he didn't give his all at times. I'm not taking anything away from what Carl just said. Everything he said is true as far as two-time Vezina winner, is an incredible player, et cetera, but the head trip and the drama got really old this year. I agree. I'm looking forward to not dealing with any of that next year. I personally will not boo any of the players. I will politely clap. I will not cheer loudly, but I will politely clap at them being in our arena again in a different uniform.
Always the diplomat.
Absolutely.
I kind of figured Pam would say that. I have a slightly different answer.
Probably be working the game, so I won't necessarily be clapping, but anyway.
I think Bob did enough for us over his time here. Stayed here a long time, was generally a good citizen. I mean, he was a very good citizen. He had this weird contract stuff this year, but we should cheer him. He got a contract that was so large from Florida that it's actually a stupid contract, and they're going to be buying him out or waiving him at the end of the 4 years from now. So, look, if they're going to pay him $70 million over 10, he has like $70 million contract or something for over 7 years. That's fine. Take that. I mean, he didn't spurn us. I mean, that's a better deal. Take it. I disagree with Panarin. I think he might get booed because he really played the I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. I might say I'll do that thing. Remember the All-Star break? His agent was going to have a meeting, and then it didn't happen.
Right.
He wasn't here very long to build up a lot of goodwill.
Drama.
He went to our rival, and they're going to come and be pretty good.
Right.
And I think he might get booed. Now, I'm not saying fans should, but he did not treat us as well as Bobrovsky did.
Right.
And he was very good, and I probably wouldn't boo him either. But if someone is going to get booed, I think it's more likely to be him.
Okay.
I think you're right there with that. I, however, am saving all my boos for number 77, Jeff Carter. You like that, Carl?
Amen, Mark. You and I are sticking together on that one, brother.
Well, and none of these guys did
I was
anything
going to
like
say
that.
70. Josh, what? Wait, which 77? You said a completely different name. I'm like, huh?
If you are listening and you're on the fence as to whether you should, I will tell you this: none of these guys forced to trade. None of them was a malcontent or a jerk or really hosed us, except for the not telling us what they wanted to do. But we decided to go all in and keep them. We could have made the decision to trade them, so I don't think you necessarily need to boo any of them.
Well, we'll actually find out a little more about the inside track when we talk with Carl in the next segment, because I want to find out more about the Vancouver meeting, which apparently some publicity became available just in the last week or so regarding some behind-the-scenes information. So we'll get into that in our next segment. You are listening to Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk on WDLR. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk. I'm Pam Spencer, along with Darren Schulman, Mark Bingaman, and also Carl Bennett is on the phone with us from out west. And we're talking about the Blue Jackets season and the unrestricted free agents and the folks that left and the folks that have joined us. And let's talk about that right now. I want to mention that obviously we're excited that we are adding Gustav Nyquist to a 4-year deal. And he is a former Red Wings, former Sharks player. Didn't play for the Sharks all that long, but so that's exciting.
Yeah, so that is pretty exciting. All those people who left, the unspoken impact of that is we actually had a lot of cap space. So as of last week, we had I think about $15 million in cap space. We could not have signed all three of the people we left at what they signed for. Bobrovsky got $10 million a year, Panarin's 11.6, and Duchesne is 8. So we couldn't even sign them at the prices they signed anyway. So we've used some of that savings to sign Nyquist, who is kind of like a Duchesne figure who Detroit traded because they didn't think they could sign him. He kind of was a rental, and now he's a free agent. What do you guys know about Nyquist?
I know Nyquist has been with the Red Wings 5-6 years. Now, he's not. Pam and I are going back and forth about whether or not he's a replacement for Panarin. I mean, in a way, he's a replacement for Panarin, but he's not. I mean, his talent level is far below that. So he's there to replace Panarin to some extent. He's not going to achieve those type of numbers. I mean, from what I've seen over the years, he is a guy that scores 22, 25 goals a year. So it's nice. It's a nice addition. I see him as a strong second-line guy, maybe a third-line guy upon occasion. Definitely not a top-line guy in any regard. So I like it for for a little bit of depth and to help us out a little bit. But as far as Artie, no, it's not the same thing.
He's way cheaper. He's $5.5 million cap hit as opposed to 11. So I think he's more of a poor man's Duchesne. Like he can, he's not like a transcendent player, but he's solid. He chips in that amount of points. You add that up, you need that in a game.
He's a goal scorer. I don't know how he is on the penalty play or power play. Gosh, penalty kill or power play. See, in the middle of summer, I'm all out of the groove in hockey. I don't know how he is and all that, but he scores some goals once in a while.
I think it's a good signing. We couldn't leave that day with nothing. I mean, everyone left. At least we got a player who is well regarded.
The thing that I like, I just read the article just this morning actually about the idea that he wants to be here. That goes right back to what I was saying in the last segment. He wants to be in Columbus. He has practiced with Werenski. He's friends with Cam. He's friends with this one. He's buddies with that one. He wants to be in Columbus.
Well, good.
And I'm sorry, I know sometimes I lean back on the warm and fuzzy a little bit from time to time. I know it's hockey. I know it's a tough game. It's a physically demanding sport, and the guys want to make as much money as they can in the period of time that they play the game. But he wants to be here, and that makes a difference for some players.
So he says.
I like
that's what he says.
the value of the contract, so I'm really big on the salary cap. And $5.5 million cap hit a year is very reasonable. I hate when teams lose big time players and they just throw it at somebody, and we're still paying Hartnell and Fedor-Tutin their buyout money. Yeah. So you don't want these contracts that go 7 years and you got to buy them out. So I think this was a 4-year deal. He'll still be productive at that point, and at 5.5, it's a decent risk.
Actually, I'm a little surprised at that money. I'm not sure he's worth $5.5 million a year. To me, that's another Dubinsky and Foligno and an overpayment type situation, in my personal opinion.
Carl, any thoughts on Nyquist
I don't
before we move
100%
on?
disagree with that.
Well, it's Columbus, guys, and I don't mean to speak ill, but we, as has been said many times by lots of people, we have to overpay to get people to come here. We just do, and because it's not Miami, it's not Pittsburgh, it's not the Rangers, it's Columbus, it's Middle America, and we're going to get there eventually, but we're not there yet, and I think we just always are going to be bemoaning overpaying players just to get them here.
I don't mind overpaying.
Once we set a track record, then I think people will want to come here.
I don't mind overpaying a little bit. I don't like overpaying when I know it's going to be a buyout in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so I guess
Of course.
I agree with
Good
Mark
point.
that we might have paid him too much, but I don't think $5.5 million in 3 years is going to be the situation where we're stuck with this albatross.
He'll be around for a while.
Well,
He's
okay,
relatively
guys,
young.
let's ask ourselves, what are we paying Wenberg?
I thought we were going to not make me sad this show.
No, what are we paying? What are we paying Murray?
Well,
What are
actually,
we paying
I was about
Wenberg?
to say, he's
those
the-
guys. That's pretty good money, and I could just toss them. They're just not producing.
Well,
So-
Murray's the next name on my list.
Yes.
Murray just signed a 2-year extension. And the first thing
boy.
I thought was, Mr. Glassman, the poor guy just can't stay on his skates.
the amazing thing is he's at a $4.6 million cap hit, and I think that's an increase of what he was last year. And I'm like, the guy, I like him, he's good, but he can't stay healthy. Why are you paying
know.
him more
Yeah.
when he hasn't
Well, they see
demonstrated
the
that?
potential, I guess. I don't know.
He looked
Has a
pretty
good
strong.
agent.
He looked pretty
Yeah.
strong before the injury went down this year. I thought he was playing
did.
pretty well until the
He
end of the
was.
season when he went
Agreed.
to. And by the way,
Agreed.
Carl, did you not get the memo about how we're not allowed to talk about Alexander Winterberg on this show
Yes.
anymore? Did you miss that memo there?
I'm sorry. Who?
Yeah.
I don't. What do you think about that Murray contract value there? I mean, when you look at 4.6, the Nyquist looks like a deal almost. But
Well, that's my point. That's the only reason I brought it up, guys. That's a lot of money, but we got some other guys that are close to that number, and they just, they're non-existent on the ice. Just don't see them.
if you look at our salary cap figures, we have a lot of guys, and Mark mentioned the Folinos and the Dubinskys who are making right in that 5 to 6.5 range, and we don't have any $12 million players anymore, but we have all these like kind of middle of the road kind of dudes, and it's I don't know, it is a challenge.
I didn't write down numbers, but we picked up Harrington for 3 more years, Clendenning for a 2-year extension, Hannakainen for a 1-year extension, and I really like Hannakainen. I was kind of disappointed they only did a 1-year extension on him. I think he's coming along.
They got your guy Corpy and Elvis Merzlikins got 1-year deals.
Well, yeah, I was going to get to I was keeping the goalies as a separate conversation,
Save it.
But I do have to add, if you guys have ever seen this T-shirt, I want this T-shirt. There's a Hannakainen T-shirt out there. There's photos floating around of Zach Werenski in a T-shirt with the Heineken logo. But if you look closely, it says Hannakainen and something about hockey. But it's a Heineken logo T-shirt. But it says Hannakainen. I want that T-shirt. That's so cool.
I mean, if I'm going to go
That's
Blue
neat.
Jackets funny T-shirts, I'm going the one with Werenski's face getting smashed.
Oh, yeah,
or
that
whatever.
one's a good one,
That's
too.
good.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think we still have to re-sign him. Isn't he a restricted free agent?
Werenski?
Isn't
you
he?
say?
Yeah, isn't he up for?
No, not this year.
No, I think
it
we
was
have
Zach
another
this
year
year.
or two.
We
on
do?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're fine there.
So any thoughts on Harrington? 3 years. Clendenning, 2 years.
I mean, Harrington looked
yes,
okay. No. I mean, he looked okay this year as a third line defenseman, as the number 5, number 6 guy. Mix and match doesn't really matter to me.
They're depth players. Their values when I looked at them weren't outside the realm. I mean, Murray stood out because it was a significant amount of money for a guy who was hurt, but those looked like, why not?
Yeah, and Clendenning's a guy that may or may not make the team. He came up at the end of the last season. Will he be here at the beginning of next? I mean, he's a guy that's going to go back and forth between us and Cleveland, I would think, for the most part.
What's the name that I mix up with Clendenning that got hurt? We just picked him up, and he got hurt within like the second game.
McQuaid.
Thank you,
Adam McQuaid. Yeah.
So
I think he's a free agent.
I was about to ask. That was a rest of the season deal, right? So he's up for grabs. All right.
Doesn't sound like they're jumping on him.
No, they're not, are they?
Yeah. I mean, he's a slow, big defenseman who doesn't do a heck of a lot aside from fight, and now he's got concussion issues, so he's probably not real popular in the league.
Yes.
So McQuaid may be around, and we lost the other deadline acquisition, the goalie, right? Kincaid signed with somebody else. Oh, we're supposed to talk about goalies
signed
later.
with the Maple Leafs.
Okay,
And that was Pam's guy. She had a Kincaid jersey all.
I wanted to see him play. It's unfortunate that there just wasn't an opportunity. I did see some video of him in practice at the Ice House, so I did get to see him actually play in net, so to speak, and in practice. In a CBJ uniform, but he's a neat personality. In addition to being a good player, he has a cool personality on Twitter. So that was the draw, sort of, as far as the social media people. I really enjoy following people and and reading what they have to say and the interaction with the fans. I really enjoy that part of the game too. It's interesting to note that there's some hubbub in the social media circles that I follow regarding Elvis. Now, Elvis is, I think it's pronounced Merzlikens, but I will admit that Yarmo said Merzlikens the other day, so we'll just stick with Elvis for now. But somebody posted something just in the last week or so kind of grumbling about the fact that they weren't happy with how big a personality he has. He is a very nice-looking young man who posts photos of himself, and he's got some tattoos, and he's very chiseled. And this person was kind of grumbling about how out there he is with his personality. And I'm thinking it's just because he's almost the complete opposite of Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky was very reserved, very laid back. Bob did very little social media. In fact, I'm thinking his Twitter account maybe appeared 1.5 years ago at the most.
Yeah, you're right.
Something like that. So it's interesting to see the fans' reactions to the different players.
I mean, players nowadays, that's part of their thing. They got to market themselves. It's less in hockey. Other sports, they're always marketing themselves. Right. And frankly, the Blue Jackets need stars that we can market. So if the guy wants to do that and he's not being a jerk,
right?
I say go for it.
To my knowledge, he's not being a jerk. But this person was posting implying that they think he could be a jerk, that he's kind of arrogant about his looks and his chiseled features. He does. He has a very pleasant look as far as,
I mean, Mark and I face the same challenges with our chiseled looks. People think we're jerks when we're full.
He's a very nice, young-looking young man. I will just leave it at that. But
I love professional athletes who have personality. I don't think there's enough personality in pro sports, especially in sports like baseball. Everyone has to be so, cool all the time and laid back. So I like a little bit of extra personality. If it's too much, I think the sport of hockey has a way of bringing you right back down. A guy like Coach John Tortorella and the captains are going to say, Elvis, you're out there a little bit, maybe rein it in. And he's never played in North America before. He's been over in Europe the entire time, so he'll learn his way.
Yeah, as far as his play, Carl and I were talking about this not too long ago, the fact that he is an incredible goalie overseas. It's a different size rink overseas. So he definitely has to make an adjustment, and we have no way of knowing where he's at in that adjustment other than his practice, and he hasn't played a game for us yet, so we'll see.
I mean, we discussed this before. I feel like a lot of the performance of goalies is how good your defense is, too.
Yeah.
And the good thing is we didn't really lose defenders. We lost our offense, so I don't know if that's going to help them, but when the defense was bad like 5 years ago before we started this run, like our goals were they're just getting killed. But I don't know. If you have good defense, I feel like we can cover up a little bit. What do you think, Carl?
Well, I got to agree with Pam. I'd like to get on the Elvis thing, but I'm not going to say a word till I've seen him play.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to her a couple weeks ago, the lights are brighter, a little more attention, a little faster game, I think.
True.
Lots of variables coming at him that are unknowns. So we'll just, I'm not saying he can't handle it. We just don't know. So we'll find out.
Right.
But
Looking forward to that.
That's probably why they only offered him a 1-year contract. However, in that 1-year contract negotiations, his deal is he does not go to the Monsters.
Well, they can't send him to the Monsters because all they have is Corpy.
Well, we have Corpy, and just a few weeks ago, Jarmo Kekalainen posted, or they had an article or something. I don't remember where I read it, but it was something CBJ related. They're going to let Vinny try out too. So, yeah.
I mean, it's not like they have a guy who's going to come up.
Vivalainen is going to be here when they do training camp. It's going to be between those 3 goalies, Corpy, Elvis, and Vinny, and they all have an equal shot of being the lead goalie this year.
Indeed, they do. And Korpisalo's sitting around going,
He's
y'all
gotta
can
prove
talk
it.
about Elvis all you want, but I'm the man, is what Corpy is saying.
Well, he's got to
these
prove
days.
it.
Yes, he does.
There's a whole fan group called Corpy's Crew.
Yeah.
They're behind him.
Oh, sure.
Corpy's crew.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's take a break. And when we come back, we mentioned earlier in the show the Vancouver meetings, or I guess it was just one meeting, if I'm not mistaken. But we're going to kind of delve into that and get a little more on the drama of the Vancouver meeting that occurred mid-season last year before the run for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we'll return in a couple of minutes. This is Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk on WDLR. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk. I'm Pam Spencer, and we have Mark Bingaman and Carl Bennett in this segment, and we're going to focus on the Vancouver meeting from last year, and this has been brought to our attention in just the last week or two from The Athletic, which is a sports source, and Carl is a subscriber to this. So, Carl, tell us a little bit about the 2 Russians in the room and the Vancouver meeting.
Well, Pam, Aaron Portzline at The Athletic did a really terrific article recently, giving us a really nice glimpse into what really goes on in the locker room, because so rarely do we really know what goes on in there. And while it's not full of precise details, there are some things that we learned, and that, lots of issues were swirling around the club when they had 8 games to go in the season. They had gone 5-7-1 since the trade deadline, and they'd gone all in. And things weren't looking very good, and apparently some things occurred, and some accusations were made, and players just kind of called each other out. And before the Vancouver game, the players kind of took over, which was kind of what Tortorella had talked about all the time, is he wants the players to own it.
Mm-hmm.
And the coaches were asked to leave the room, and apparently it was pretty combative and confrontational. And I guess Bobrovsky and Panarin took the brunt of it because of all the distraction of their, very casual, we don't really want to be here, but we're here, all that. So apparently no egos or feelings were spared, and they sort of cleared the air. And Cam Atkinson said that, it was pretty painful, but at the end of it all, they kind of decided, hey, we're here together right now, and we need to be professionals and put on our best performances. And it made a lot of guys better, and because of the openness and honesty, according to Atkinson. And, they had a really great practice that day. They had a lot of fun. They were really loose. They enjoyed themselves. And it kind of alleviated a lot of pressure, apparently. And so there had been apparently every 3 or 4 weeks, lots of meetings through the year. But this was the one that sort of helped them break through. And they got open and honest with each other and went on, as we know, to have a lot of success. They won the 7 of their 8 final games of the year. And then, of course, they swept the Tampa Bay Lightning. So they were on a crest of a wave there for a while. I think it's just as a direct result of this very open and honest meeting, and it was a really great article. And kudos to Aaron Portzline for a really great report there.
And again, that's in The Athletic just in the last week or so. Carl, let me ask you if you can help refresh my memory. Was that game or that meeting before the game, was that before or after Bob was pulled from a game? He went in, took a shower, put on street clothes, did not return to the bench. that whole.
Yeah, that was down in Tampa when that occurred. So
Okay.
this happened after the Tampa thing.
So
Tampa
the
was much
Vancouver
earlier.
meeting was after.
Yeah, he said it was
Yes,
only,
correct.
8 days
Okay.
left in the season or 8 games left in the
Correct.
season.
Okay, and then
Yeah, I think it was earlier that he had they were down in Tampa. You're correct, Mark.
Okay.
And this was a week or so later, maybe a little longer later.
Yeah, I remember that time of the season because
Yeah.
things were not looking good. We'd gone all in. Deshane and DeZingle and the other 2 guys were brought in at the trade deadline. We
And they
thought this was
didn't
going to be
click.
and nothing clicked. You know,
Right.
several games you're like, well, this was a big mistake, and then all of a sudden they took off and they were firing on all cylinders, and it's being credited toward this Vancouver meeting, huh?
Now let me clarify one more thing about the Vancouver meeting and the and Bobrovsky. There was some talk at one time following his not return to the bench night that there had been individuals blaming him, and I don't know if this is fans literally like reaching out to him and blaming him, or whether this was teammates. But there was some hubbub at that same time frame blaming Bobrovsky that they can't get to the second round because he falters every time he plays the Pittsburgh Penguins. He does not play up to speed, up to snuff. Was that example in this article as well in regards to does it specify teammates, fans, all of the above? Do you have any information on that?
There wasn't any reference to that kind of finger pointing. It says that the Bobrovsky and Panarin took the brunt of the combative and confrontational meeting. It doesn't go into detail about any kind of reliability or falter on Bobrovsky's part or anything like that. I mean, I don't. I think that's possible, but there's no reference to it. Aaron's a pretty balanced guy. He doesn't write that kind of stuff.
All right.
Did he quote anyone? Did he quote anyone aside from Cam?
I did quote Nick Foligno because if you recall, at the time, his son Hudson had pneumonia, and he was back in Columbus for that West Coast trip, that 3-game trip where they lost the first 2 games, and then they beat Vancouver. After the meeting, they beat them 5-0, and he was sort of monitoring it all from home, and I said it was kind of a you-know-what show, trying to communicate with him, and manage it all, and it was. He quoted him as saying, he wished he could have been there because it was a good thing. It was painful, but they worked out their demons and exercised the demons and got, as we know, back on track. And I think the good part is that it did say that Seth Jones and some other quieter guys, Boone Jenner and Seth Jones, they actually called the meeting and asked the coaches to leave the room. So when you've got guys who are leaders on the ice stepping up and saying, "Hey, we need to talk," I think it's a good thing. The team really came together, and that's, you can have all the stars in the world. If you don't have any chemistry in there, if you don't trust each other, if you're not honest with each other, I think that goes a long way. And hockey locker rooms are notoriously, it all stays in the room. So this is kind of a neat picture, very valuable article about what goes on behind the scenes. I enjoyed it immensely.
Well, I was thrilled to hear that there was some additional information because there was a period of time with last season where, it was sort of a gray area. Jarmo Kekalainen felt like he had, spent the money that he felt that it was appropriate, and that his exact phrasing was, we're all in. This is it. We're going for the cup. And the fact that Panarin and Bobrovsky they're pretty much they're under contract until July 1st. So let's use these individuals and let's be as successful as humanly possible. And I'm glad to hear a little more detail about what prompted the turnaround, because in the end, 5,000 people came to watch them practice not too long after that, and they were shocked that many people would come to just watch them practice at Nationwide Arena. So I'm sure that helped. And then once we were in the actual playoffs, 14,000 of us went to watch an away game on the big screen over the ice. And that was an amazing feeling to be able to share that night with the team. Obviously, we're just fans. We're just along for the ride. But it was unusual. From what I understand, I guess the Cleveland Cavaliers have done that in the past. Maybe there have been other teams in the NHL that have done that in the past, but I hadn't heard of it before. And I always thought it would be a really neat idea when they are in the playoffs to play those away games, on the big screen and have the fans come in. And I have to say that the arena, I think, was surprised at the volume of fans that came that night to watch that on the big screen. So if it happens again, when it happens again, they will definitely have, more of their concessions open. It'll be an even bigger deal the next time around.
Remind me, Pam, how many people were at the arena? I know the 5,000 for the practice, but
it was
to watch the away game.
14,000. So it was,
wow.
Yeah, and the place
That's
holds
5,000 short of capacity.
Correct. The place can hold up to about 19. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was very packed.
We loved it. It was worth everything that we did to go all in was worth it. Yeah, we could have traded, Bobrovsky and Panarin at the deadline, gotten a couple of draft picks here and there. Instead, we gave up draft picks. It was well worth it to go all the way in. I feel like I'm just watched a general who ordered a mass suicide run up the side of a hill, and we were destroyed and decimated. But still, we say it was worth it because we took the charge.
Earlier in the show, we talked about our opinions of Bob and Brett and Duchesne leaving. And I just want to say, we're going to do the rose-colored glasses again. I imagine the team this year as being completely different, obviously, because we don't have those individuals. However, and I know you guys keep chuckling at me, but the guys that are here want to be here. And I'm going to put on the rose-colored glasses and say that I wish that the CBJ would win the Stanley Cup without the services of the two Russians and the country star. And, pretty much hold our heads up high. I'm really excited for the coming season. Win or lose, I'm excited for the coming season.
You should be excited. We lost two world-class players. We lost another guy who's close to that.
But the world-class players brought tons of drama.
Exactly. Can we replace him? And I bring this up. Have either one of you heard anything? Is there another free agent out there that may make a difference to us? Anybody else available that in any regard?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, we're not looking at another Gustav Nyquist anywhere or anything like that. Okay.
Carl, have you heard any other rumors of picking up anybody
else?
Not. Okay. Yeah.
I've not, but I'm not all doom and gloom. There are young players coming up that maybe weren't the number 1 or 2 drafts, and we didn't get many first round picks. And I kind of watched the draft. I was out with a buddy here in Colorado and watching it, and it's exciting to watch these young guys go first and second, and they're top 10, all that. And we didn't get that, but we have a decent farm system, and I think there might be some pleasant surprises. And anytime you've got guys that are sort of out of the spotlight, maybe they secretly desire to be in the spotlight, and they can do that by performing really strongly on the ice. And you've got motivation, and you've got, like I said earlier, you got a team that clearly the rest of the league thinks we've lost everything, and they're going to have a little underdog attitude. And I think a guy like Tortorella gets the most out of players. And now you've got a locker room with some leaders in it that have spoken up. And one of the things Foligno said was he thought it was a really eye-opening and great lesson for everybody, especially the young players, now that they've got to see what it looks like when a team is open and honest with itself and deals with its issues. And that's quoting him from the article. And I can't agree with him more. I think that there's a lot of guys who are going to look up and see how we do things here in Columbus and be proud to wear that uniform. And I just think there might be some surprises. I don't look for them to lead the league, but they could sneak in again. I'm real happy about what's happened. So we'll be fine.
Well, let's take another break. We have one more segment, and we'll be right back with Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk on WDLR. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk, the summer edition, and we are talking with Mark Bingaman and Carl Bennett at this point. And in the last segment, we're kind of just thinking about the future season. I personally kind of joke about the rose-colored glasses, how I'm looking forward to a new season with new players. I don't think that I will miss Bobrovsky or Panarin. Duchesne wasn't with us very long, although he did have the warm and fuzzy moment of playing guitar to his baby video that ran for a while. So, but Carl, you were kind of saying you're kind of looking forward to it too.
Absolutely. I think there's always lesser names, guys we haven't heard of, guys that are coming up through the system that we don't know about yet, and they haven't made any headlines. But there might be some nice surprises, and I'm sure that Jarmo Kekalainen has some talks going on with some other players around the league that haven't been signed yet. Might be some surprises.
Go ahead.
No reason for doom and gloom.
Sorry. I was so happy 4 or 5 years ago when Jarmo went out and grabbed Scotty Hartnell in the middle of the summer from Philadelphia. So I am looking forward to a big surprise like that here sometime.
Yeah,
some nice player.
Who knows?
And the other good news, the other positive side of the coin is that with the loss of these players, now we have room once again for Sonny Milano.
Yes. Let's talk about Sonny Milano, the 12-year-old looking young man who apparently lost his temper a little bit. The news story goes that Sonny Milano and A.J. Greer from the Colorado Avalanche are charged with misdemeanor assault in New York City from a couple of weeks ago. They will be going before a judge in September. And again, these are misdemeanor assault charges. Apparently, the gentlemen were drinking throughout the evening, and the bar tab was kind of hefty, and there was a disagreement on who was going to pay how much on that bar tab, and they ended up kind of arguing, and the argument got out of hand, it sounds like. So my question for you guys is, what does the NHL league do once these charges are resolved? How do they affect Sonny Milano for the Blue Jackets and AJ Greer for the Colorado Avalanche?
We'll have to wait and see what the result is, but I know that the league is very, very protective of its reputation and always frowns heavily against misconduct off the ice, whether it's domestic violence or misconduct of any kind. I mean, it's just it's not the top three major sports. It's fourth, and always trying to break that ceiling, and the people who run the league are very, very protective of it. So I think a lot of times these kind of incidents happen, and these players kind of disappear. They go away, and who knows?
Well, these are misdemeanor charges. There were a total of 3 people involved, the 2 that we mentioned, the 2 players, and then a third person that was apparently in the fight, or they fought with him, is the way I understand it. So, but these
might just quietly go away. Who knows?
I'm not sure how much time is left on Milano's contract with us. I know that he played at least 8 games this past year for the CBJ, and the remainder of the time that he wasn't here, he was up at Cleveland playing for the Monsters. So he does have some face time, if you will, with the Blue Jackets and the Monsters. But yeah, it's hard to tell.
I don't think it'll be anything too harsh for Sonny. As Pam mentioned, it's a misdemeanor, and they'll wait and see about the court case. So there was something incredibly horrible to come out of it, then the league would take action. I think a misdemeanor assault case, especially if he's found not guilty, the league doesn't worry about it too much. Maybe leagues do. I mean, maybe teams themselves worry about it a little bit and don't sign the young man. But and I don't want to jump on board Sonny either, too, because we don't know what happened. That's why we have trials. He could have been standing there, and some guy punches him, and you get into an altercation, and all of a sudden your career's over because of it. That's not fair either.
That's true. We don't have a lot of details on what actually happened, other than there was an argument with a third person over the bar tab. And Mark, I think you had looked up a little more detail, and it was a $1,200 bar tab, and these 2 individual players agreed to pay $600 apiece. So if they're going to cover the tab, I don't understand what the third person, what that person's problem was.
I believe the third person just thought the bar tab was higher, and they needed to pay more than the $1,200.
Well, it would be a tip on top of that $1,200. So maybe the argument was over the tip. That's possible.
And there was something to do with the apartment, too. I feel like they were at an apartment, that they had left the club, and they were at somebody's apartment, Sonny's apartment. I believe his dad said that they were at Sonny's apartment, and this is where it occurred, like about 6:30 in the morning.
Okay. So maybe the tab had already been totaled, and the tip had been paid, but, maybe the third guy paid the tip and didn't like it. I don't know. Oh, well. Maybe we'll find out more. Maybe we won't. It just depends on how much they release to the public.
Any way you look at it, if you're a hockey player and you're going to trial and you have to stand in front of a judge and you're a hockey player, that's got to be a little bit tough. I'm thinking about the prosecutor going, hey, it's a hockey player over there. He punches people in the face every day. So, of course, he's guilty. That's got to be rough.
Yeah, they don't. But people who don't follow hockey might think that. You're right. All right, guys, we're just about out of time. Last thoughts, Carl.
looking forward to October.
And Mark?
Looking forward to October as well. Keeping my fingers crossed. I'm a little bit saddened, but yeah, I'm with Pam too. These guys want to be here. Let's go get them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the preseason. I enjoy those games because it gives a chance to see these new guys. And we will take a break from Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk for a little while, but we'll be back in the fall to talk about training camp and the new season. You're listening to Mid-Ohio Hockey Talk on WDLR.